Parents should never complain that they gave their kids a car, but the foolishness was to teach them how to tie their shoes. Once they learn how to tie their shoes, you can't control them. It's not because you bought them a car, it's because you never started in the beginning. If you'd kept that kid unable to tie his shoes without falling, he would have been your slave and your baby forever. But foolishly, you taught him how to tie his shoes. God did the same thing with us. He taught us that we were free, that we could make choices, and we chose against him. And so we need the feast of today, Pentecost, where his power comes back to teach us that we can be free and we can choose his power to restore us to the original state we were in. Without freedom, paradise is a zoo or kept animals. But with freedom, we can choose to love, and we can have a garden visit with our Father, who is God. The difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament is the Jews had no power. They were slaves of a law that they couldn't fulfill, and no power to fulfill it, because Jesus hadn't come and died and freed them from that law. They just realized more and more every day that they lived, that they were unable to rise up to eternity by their own weak efforts because they weren't divine. It's by the coming of the divinity in our humanity that we could raise up to heaven and become free lovers of Jesus and lovers of God. This festival is the most important culmination of the resurrection of Jesus. It's the giving of the Spirit in a solemn way. Power has to be channeled. Power raw destroys. Fire destroys if it's not channeled to a furnace or some place to contain it. Winds that are not channeled destroy. And so divine power destroys if it's not channeled. And Jesus channeled the power to the sacraments, to his church, to certain places where we could plug into the power and harness it to make ourselves like unto God. It's up to us to use those sacraments, to use that Spirit of God, to become like unto God, to become participants in a beautiful garden wherein we are visited and communicate with the one who no longer calls us slaves, but calls us friends, Jesus, our Lord and our God.